What how to do, guys? It's your boy Tolman, and today we're just going to be jumping into the August 11th TWAB. Real quick, if I sound nasally or congested or just tired, I have been sick all week. Luckily, it is not the Rona, so if I just sound a little off during this TWAB, just cut me some slack. I've been through it. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. This week at Bungie, we have some Sandbox updates. Happy TWAB's Day, Guardian. First off, how is it already the second week in August? Secondly, how are we almost to next season? Honestly, this season's just been burnt, so let's get to the next one. Good news, if you still have time to wrap up your seasonal titles and think about what you're going to wear for Arc 3.0. I can't choose between Geomax Stabilizers and Crown of Tempest, but sound off in the socials and let us know what you're going to try out first. Alright, jumping right into weapon and things. First up, we're going to jump into some Sandbox changes, so let me hand it over to one of our associate designers from the Sandbox team, Mercules. Mercules? I don't know how to say that dude's name. Hello everyone, Mercules here. We moved a good bit of balance changes from Season 18 forward to the mid-season patch of Season 17. So this will be a lighter weapon Sandbox TWAB than usual. That being said, there are still some changes we're really excited to talk about, so let's dive right in. Alright, moving on to Too Long Didn't Read, buff some underutilized weapon archetypes, scout rifles and heavy grenade launchers in PvE, high impact auto rifles, lightweight bows, buffed multiple perks, fixed some bug perks, and updated some perk descriptions to be more accurate, buffed multiple exotic weapons, added intrinsic anti-champion functionality to some, reworked a couple of exotic weapons whose functionality was causing issues, updated perk pools for Dares of Eternity weapons, and gave them a new origin trait. Talking about global changes here, fixed an issue introduced in the 30th anniversary update that caused too much heavy ammo to drop when running double special weapons, several weapon stats previously hidden which made fully evaluating weapons difficult, airborne effectiveness, recoil direction, zoom, and aim assist are now visible in the weapons inspection screen. Nice. Talking about weapon archetypes here, this one is going to be meaty, so just bear with me. Scout rifles. We felt they could use a little bit of love in PvE. Increased damage of all scout rifles versus minor enemies in PvE by 10%. Nice little scout rifle buff right there. High impact auto rifles. This subfamily of auto rifles has good damage output but low ease of use, leading them to underperform compared to other options of the same engagement ranges. Increased base stability stat of all non-sunset high-impact auto rifles by 6 to 12, depending on the weapon. Lightweight bows. This subfamily has languished compared to the other high-damage counterparts for some time, in part due to difficult hitting the perfect draw shots, so we've made it a bit easier. Reduced draw time by 5%, increased the perfect draw window. Hand cannons. Fixed Dire Promises zoom stat, originally 13, now 14. Glaives. Their interactions with some exotic armor pieces can be confusing, so we've explicitly made some changes to align better with our stated goals. Glaive melee attacks can now activate the exotic armor perks on Feedback Fence, Karstein armlets, and Neurotic Grip. Breach grenade launchers. Concussion grenades can no longer roll in the magazine slot. Heavy grenade launchers. These don't see a ton of support in PvE, so we hope this makes them feel a bit better as a DPS or a yellow bar clearing option. Okay, but what's the change there? It's got to be some sort of buff, but they don't have anything listed. Alright, moving on into weapon pools. Updated the perk pools for Dares of Eternity weapons and added an origin trait. Addressed an issue where playlist weapons weren't randomizing individual perk columns perk counts based on the number of resets. So in case you guys didn't know, every time you reset, you can get an additional perk on weapons that you get from whatever playlist activity you reset. Alright, moving on to the new perk updates and changes. The Gambit and Iron Banner origin traits were too specific to be generally used, so they've both been redesigned. Starting with Gambit origin traits, Invader Tracker, renamed Gun and Run, redesigned functionality to give a sprint speed increase on multi-kills. Sulking Wolf, the Iron Banner origin trait, redesigned to activate on kills while low on health, so it will work in PvP now. Ambitious Assassin has fallen behind perks with similar functionality, such as Overflow. We've adjusted this for higher potential than before. Increase magazine overflow from 10% to 20% per kill on the primary weapon only. Increased overflow cap from 50% to 150%. Talking about Wellspring now, had an internal cooldown to prevent it from activating too frequently. We no longer feel this is needed. Cooldown has been removed, allowing rocket launchers and grenade launchers to return more ability energy when defeating groups with a single shot. Yo, I've got a nasty roll with that on it. Perpetual motion was triggering too frequently enough to be annoying, so we disabled the audio-visual feedback on perk activation. Lead from Gold wasn't respecting the functionality of splitting special ammo picked up when running two special weapons. Now gives the correct amount of ammo to each weapon when 2 special weapons are equipped. Concussion grenades can no longer roll on breach grenade launchers. Vice Stinger was intended to grant ammo on weapons that support it, and charge/draw time on bows only. This was inadvertently applying to linear fusion rifles as well, making it too strong for the origin trait on them. Fixed a bug where it was applying a charge time reduction to linear fusion rifles. It will correctly only refill the magazine from reserves when it gets triggered on these weapons. Zen Moment has always had a description that confused players. The description has been updated to say what it actually does. Moving on to exotics, we're talking about buffs to weapons here. We've added an anti-champion functionality to several weapons with the goal of giving more options for each champion type, split across weapon slot and ammo type. We expect to do this from time to time and in the future as well. That's actually huge. Players have been asking for this for a hot minute now. We're finally getting it. I'm super stoked to see what those changes are going to be. So let's just find out. Le Monarch added intrinsic overload to poison arrows. Thunderlord added intrinsic overload. Wow, Thunderlord overload. Whew. Malfeasance added intrinsic unstoppable to explosions. Added a plus 25 base airborne effectiveness stat to match the other precision hand cannon's intrinsic bonus. Wishender added intrinsic anti-barrier. Increased the number of hits versus most targets from 2 to 3. Increased damage versus champions, majors, and mini-bosses by 10%. Draw time decreased from 828 milliseconds to 820 milliseconds. Tiku's Divination gets a free small buff to the global lightweight bow changes. Draw time decreased from 612 to 580. The Legend of Acreus has fallen behind other heavy, short-range weapons and warrants a buff. Catalyst now grants Trench Barrel perk in addition to other effects. What, bro? That's gonna be nasty. Different versions of the exotic paired legendary weapons didn't have matching stats, so we have brought them up to match equally. The Callus Mini Tool increased airborne effectiveness from 23 to 28 to match the Mida Mini Tool. Mida Mini Tool increased the zoom from 13 to 14 to match the Callus Mini Tool. The Drang increased airborne effectiveness from 21 to 23 to match the standard Drang. Sweet Business increased airborne effectiveness stat from 27 to 32. Fighting Lion Season 17 5% damage buff was rolled back as a part of a fix for a larger bug. This is being reintroduced and increased. Now receives the intended buff, increased from 5 to 8, so it gets an 8% buff. Holy. Increased the grace time and instant reload effect for the Thin of the Herd from 5 seconds to 6 seconds. Alright, now we gotta talk about the Lord of Wolves. The mighty Lord of Wolves has long been a thorn in the side of PvP players, especially when paired with certain exotic armor pieces. We have changed the amount of ammo it starts with and reduced the damage dealt to players. This is a part of a larger rework aimed at making it more of a viable PvE exotic without increasing the effectiveness in PvP. Decrease starting ammo in PvP from 15 to 10. Reduce the burst size. Reduce the burst delay. Decrease Lord of Wolves space damage by roughly 20%. Increase damage in PvE by 20% to compensate. Huge nerfs in PvP to that. Oh my goodness. Talking about the Dead Man's Tale now, which is a dead exotic. The Cranial Spike perk was causing issues with unintended damage scalers against players and generally felt unpredictable both to use and to fight against. It also wasn't quite landing that hip-firing cowboy rifle fantasy as we always wanted it to, so we reworked it to lean more into that fast-firing hip-fire. Oh boy, please tell me this thing is back. Changed Cranial Spike effects. Cranial Spike no longer buffs damage versus players, instead grants increased reload, aim assist, and range per stack. It grants additional damage versus PvE combatants. Upon reaching max stats of Cranial Spike, the Catalyst will now increase hipfire RPM by 50, but will deal reduced damage per bullet. Okay, so they've basically changed the entire way that Cranial Spike works. You're going to have to hit headshots in order to be able to use that RPM, kind of how the old great DMT once used to be. Alright, talking about the collective obligation, we are aiming to make this exotic perk effects easier to activate and more effective in PvE. Increase Void Leech timer to 15 seconds in PvE activities, however PvP will remain at 10 seconds. Remove the cooldown, added a 20% damage bonus against PvE combatants only while Void Leech is active, takes less hits to fully charge Void Leech, kills against debuffed targets instantly grants Void Leech. Void Leech is also charged when your character is affected by Void debuffs. Oh, okay. Alright guys, and then just kind of to wrap things up here, things that they're looking to address in a future season, Season 18 mid-season, or even Season 19. Reduce shotgun spread randomness, reduce bow swapping effectiveness, reduce trace rifle ease of use, introducing full auto setting, reduce the ability of snipers to shoot through flinch in PvP, examine small targeted bounces to certain PvP outliers, pulse rifles, high impact scout rifles, precision fusion rifles, allowing glaive interactions with some exotic armors that buff melees, fixing glaive hit detection, reworking some enhanced perks, folding spec mods into the base perks. And that is pretty much all we have for today's TWAB, guys. I appreciate you guys sticking around this long and listening in with me. Please feel free to subscribe, like my video, even comment. Just tell me what I'm doing right or tell me what you would like to see, maybe something that you feel I'm doing wrong. But until next time, that was our weekly TWAB, and Tillman is out.